So you've got some money together, can't potentially afford a brand new trombone, so you're on the market for a good second-hand trombone. What sort of stuff do you need to look for? Well, in this video, I'm going to give you guys a couple of clues on what sort of things you should look out for when you're on the market for a second-hand trombone. So firstly, let's look at the slide section. Slide is arguably the most important part of the trombone. If this doesn't work, then the whole instrument is just basically scrap metal. With the slide, we need to ensure a couple of things. Firstly, get a mouthpiece that you trust, and if it rattles around in the receiver here, then it's a sign that it's not perfectly round. Now that can either be an indicator of poor trombone quality or that the trombone has had a bit of a hard life and it's been knocked out of shape. Second test is of slide compression. You want to ensure that the slide is airtight. If it's not airtight, you're going to get a horrible leaky buzzy sound when you play. So what you can do, put your thumb securely over this end, shove the mouthpiece against your cheek and draw the slide out. If it sticks to your face and if it provides a good pull, then the slide is generally in good nick. If the slide does leak, it can be a couple of things. The first thing to check is that the water key is tight. It's got a decent cork in it and it's not letting in the air that way. If the water key is fine, and the slide still leaks, then potentially you've got to have an issue with leakage on the slide. If this happens to you, then proceed with caution. With regards to the bell section of the trombone, focusing on the triggers, each loop should be a completely closed circuit when the trigger is in its rested position. When you come to remove a trigger, if you just pull it straight out and you get a pop, that is a sign that the trigger mechanism has decent compression on the valves. That the valves, in other words, are not leaking air in. But a second way to test that is to remove all the tuning slides, all the additional tuning slides out of your trombone. Oops. Like this, and blow into one pipe whilst holding the other. If you can blow into this pipe and hold its equivalent end and air gets out, then there's a leak somewhere. Obviously make sure that you're blowing and blocking the right pipes, but each trigger should be a closed loop. Next, have a look at the inner stockings of the tuning slide. It's quite common to get varying colours of brass depending on its oxidation, but most brass players will put some sort of grease on these slides that'll prevent that oxidation from happening. Vaseline, various sorts of slide greases work reasonably well, but if you can see pitting, that is little black spots all over here, and if you can see the colour green anywhere, then that is a sign that the tuning slides have not necessarily been particularly well looked after. Next, let's take a look at the inner slide. When we come to extend it, right at the very end is the section that is called the stocking. It is a change in the slide where it goes from being from having a thinner diameter to having a thick diameter. This last part is what produces the seal. Now the step up between sections should be very, very well hidden. You'll be able to naturally see it, but if there is a big gap, if there is a step down, if there is not a smooth transition between the main part of your inner slide and the stocking component of your slide, then that is a sign that the slide has either been poorly made, as is true with many Chinese trombones, or has started to lose some of its welds. Both of those are warning signs. In fact, right here, I have an example of a cheap Chinese-made trombone slide. And we have at the end of this a very clear mark between the main part of the slide and the stocking component. If you're looking closely, which this camera won't focus on, there is no welding between the two. It is just an immediate step up, like walking up steps on a stairwell. The other thing is, if I hold my finger at this end and hold this securely, I can actually feel the whole part of the slide moving in an insecure manner. That is also another warning bell. A little bit of slide noise is not always the end of the world, and for that reason it's always a good idea to take along a method of trombone lubricant that you trust to test on the slide to see how noisy it is. Now with the slide again, when we get it to the very end where it's about to come off, take it off very slowly and see whether one of the slides suddenly jumps to another position. The slides should always be aligned even when the slide is removed. If you have to force one of the slides, one of the tubes into position when you go to insert the outer slide, then that's a sign that somebody has potentially tried to bend it, or some bad repair has taken place. Having slide tubes that are out of alignment is going to make it harder to move your slide. Next, we want to ensure that the connection between the bell section and the slide section is secure. We want to make sure that the screw is tight, and you want to make sure that once these two parts of the trombone are put together, that you're not suddenly going to lose alignment when you're playing. It's quite embarrassing when you're playing along in a manner like this and your bell suddenly goes like that. It also limits the movement of your second trigger, so if you're a bass trombonist, you particularly don't want that to happen. Lastly, play some notes, put some air through your instrument. Have something in your head memorized and reel that off. It's always important to test range, it's always important to test various aspects of the instrument, but one thing that is always an indicator of whether an instrument is good or bad is its tunefulness. It's not expected that every instrument is going to be perfectly in tune. You may have to adjust your tuning slide, but the same note in different octaves should be equally in tune. So play a couple of different octave jumps in the comfortable part of your playing register and see whether they are in tune with each other. If you've got a trigger, try that too. If one of those notes is sharper or flatter than the other, then it is a sign that the instrument may have intonation problems. So they are the key things that you should look out for when going to test drive a second-hand trombone. If you're test driving a brand new trombone of an unknown or perhaps a cheaper maker, then you may want to run through some of these tests as well. But this is the method that I'd recommend to ensuring that you don't get an instrument that's not going to be fit for purpose. Thanks.